This is video 2. We learned how to derive the money demand function in the first video. Now we have the money demand function, and also we will look at the money supply side because we want to find out how interest rate is determined. Okay, according to this model, interest rate is determined in the money market. The assumption is that the central bank controls money supply. Okay? Which means that unlike money demand, money demand was drawn. This is the money demand curve, which is a function of nominal income and interest rate, right? But money supply, let's denote money supply with MS. Money supply is given by the Fed. At the Fed, or the central bank of other countries, they determine how much money would be in the economy, how much money supply would be in the economy. So it is exogenously given, does not depend on the interest rate. Therefore, it is a vertical line. So note that this curve and this line, they intersect at point E. Okay. So at point E, money demand is equal to money supply. Okay, and these two together determine the equilibrium interest rate. Okay, so note that our money demand function looks like that. So money demand depends on nominal income and interest rate. So positively on income, negatively on interest rate. Money supply, however, is not dependent on any of these factors. It is determined by the central bank. So I star is then the equilibrium interest rate. If the interest rate is anything greater than I star, so if, for instance, the interest rate is I0, so at I0 we have money supply greater than money demand. Okay, so which means there is excess supply in the money market, which means that I will fall, so that bonds become less attractive and people start to hold more money. So the excess supply of money is eliminated. Similarly, if the interest rate is anything below I star, so let's say here, which is I1, then at I1, we have the opposite. Money supply is less than money demand, which means there is excess demand for money, which means that interest rates would increase, so making bonds more attractive, so this excess demand for money is eliminated. And interest rate would converge towards the equilibrium. At I star, both money demand and money supply are equal, so there is no excess demand or no excess supply, therefore interest rate will not change. And if nothing else changes, the economy would generate this equilibrium interest rate. Okay, so important point to remember, at E we have MD equals MS, which means that I is equal to I star. Okay, now what factors can change this interest rate? Okay, so the factors determining I. All right, first of all, we will look at what happens if there is an increase in other nominal income, right? So we have seen before that for a higher level of Y, we have a higher money demand curve. So if we want to show that, increase in Y shifts money demand upward, right? So we have a new money demand, so Y1 times Li. Okay, so this money demand intersects money supply at this new point F. Okay, at F we have a higher interest rate, let's say I2. So increase in Y then raises interest rate. Similarly, you can show that decrease in Y would lower interest rate. Okay, so now let's look at what else can affect I. So how about an increase in money supply? Okay, so what happens if the money supply is increased? So this money supply curve would shift to the right. Okay, so we have a new money supply, which would be like that. So note that our money demand curve is MD. So here we are ignoring. The red money demand curve because this was factor A. Now we are focusing on factor B. So our money demand curve is the blue curve, and our new money supply curve after the increase in money supply is this green line. Okay, so let's call this green line MS1. Right, so note what is happening here. Equilibrium interest rate was here when money supply was MS, but when money supply is MS1, then equilibrium interest rate has decreased to, let's say, I3. Okay, so increase in money supply would cause interest rate to fall. Okay, because note that at the initial interest rate I star, with this new money supply, we again have excess supply of money, and we know that if that happens, excess supply of money happens, then interest rate falls. So the interest rate drops to I3. So these are the factors that determine I. Now note that, so what is the implication of B? Note that change in money supply, okay, is the same thing as a change in interest rate, right? When money supply is increased, interest rate decreases. When money supply is decreased, if MS shifts to the left, you can show that interest rate increases. So decrease in money supply similarly causes interest rate to increase. So they are basically, saying the same thing, whether you're talking about changing the stock of money, whether the central bank is changing the stock of money or changing the interest rate. Okay, so they are interchangeable. And modern central banks, and because of this, modern central banks do not change quantity of money, do not increase or decrease quantity of money. They target the interest rate. Okay, they decide whether they should lower interest rate or increase interest rate. Okay, and the method that they use to do that is known as open market operations, which is basically buying or selling of government bonds. Okay, so this is how the interest rate is determined, and these are the factors that affect that interest rate.